Dr. Fawad Muzzaffar, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Thank you, Faizan, for having me. Good. Hope you're doing well.
I'm very well. And, I've talked to people about you a lot because you have been not only an inspiration because you went to a top notch school and you did all the great work that you did, but you're one of those rare doctoral um, students or PhDs who later decided to join the industry. And that is something which always interests me and intrigues me. So, before we jump into things about your career in Pakistan, how about you quickly tell us about your academic career? I know that you were an honor student in UAT. You went to Stanford and did your master's and PhD. Can we know a little about what you worked on, perhaps?
Yes. I, as you said, I did my bachelor's in 2000. After that, I worked in NESPAC for like 3.5 years, which is one of the state-owned premier consultant firms in Pakistan, as you might know. After that, I was fortunate and lucky enough because it's always luck factor in there. I got admitted to Stanford. In addition to I also got admitted to MIT. Um, I had this, very exciting couple of weeks where I had to choose between the two of them, and I actually told MIT that if you fund my first semester, I'll come to MIT, and I told the same thing to Stanford. What I didn't know was that they had a database where they were talking to each other. So, anyways, MIT told me that I could come and they would fund me for fund my studies starting second semester. Stanford, on the other hand, asked me as to what I want. I told them I want this much, and so I that's how I chose Stanford, and I never regretted my decision. I came to Stanford in 2004. I started my master's. I started master's is generic. It's not field specific. I did my master's in structural engineering. Um, After I completed my master's, I want started to work with Professor Gregory Dearlene, who is the Bloom professor at Stanford. We worked on analytical modeling of brittle shear columns. And this is a problem that you have uh, mostly in buildings that were constructed in the eras of 1970s. And as you know, most of San Francisco, a lot of the skyscrapers and also in Los Angeles, they were constructed in the 70s. And so they have this tendency to, collapse brittly. We worked on analytical modeling of the beam column models. And so that's what I did over there at Stanford. Came back to Pakistan in 2012. Started teaching in UET where we were colleagues. After that, I had stints with a number of private colleges, but somehow, in this part of the world, I was not very happy with the way research was conducted and very well aware of that also. So after a while, I thought I cannot, fabricate papers synthetically, and I decided to join the industry. If you ask me, my first preference would have been faculty,
Oh, really?
academics, yeah. But since the lack of funding, the lack of resource material in this part of the world, and I would also say the culture in the academic institutions, pretty much I figured it out in a couple of years that that was not the right place for me at least, and so that's why I made a switch
To IDAP.
through IDAP.
And you have
So
been here since. You didn't make a switch.
I have been here since 2016.
Mhm.
I was one of the very few first employees of IDAP, and we started off when we started off. I was pretty much looking after a lot of different functions of the organization, because when organizations are coming up, you don't have those the amount of HR, the organization structure of a
Documentation.
mature organization. So, but with the passage of time, we have evolved, and I have been looking. I've been heading the engineering design side of the organization, and since the last 6 and 7 months, I have also been looking after the proposal section of the organization. So, yeah.
Wonderful. I mean, did you imagine that you would end up in a role that you are right now when you returned or when you were back hoping to return?
To tell you the truth, no.
Mhm.
My first instinct was, I've spent at least 3 or 4 years thinking about as to if I had made a mistake coming back to Pakistan from the US. Um, but and those 3 4 years were pretty rough, because you get used to the level of professionalism, and then you have to be comfortable financially also. You should be making enough to maintain a certain standard of life. So those first 4 or 5 years were pretty rough. But then, I was lucky enough to have this opportunity where the government was setting up a elite institution to execute, design, and supervise some of the very mega projects of the government of.
Oh,
Yes, can you hear Rizwan?
I can hear you, but I cannot see you. I can see you now. Okay.
Okay, sorry about that.
Sorry for the glitch. So
All right.
we were talking about your experience here. You were talking about how you shifted from your academics and now you're working at IDAP.
Yes. So, so I was fortunate enough that they were raising a new organization, and they wanted people at that time, frankly. And so it was pretty much, you know, I was at the right place at the right time, kind of stuff. But now that when I look back, it's very improbable, and I feel myself that I feel that I'm lucky. So
Wonderful. So, Dr. Fawad, I've I'm I'm lucky to know many people actually have who've had credentials similar to yours, who were in the US, working even for several years, and then they return, and they're now in Pakistan, and they seem happy too. So I want to know what were your reasons to stay, because you could have gone and you still can go places literally, and you still decide to stay there.
my reasons, Faizan, I would love to come out as a altruistic patriot, person. But my reasons were actually my family. My father had passed away in 2010, and my mother was here in Pakistan. So my brother was in the Middle East, and I needed to come back. But that being said, uh, you know, when you come back to Pakistan, you need to readjust to a lot of different things, and the from the attitude of the your peers to um, to a lot of mundane, small things, and to be honest, it's really difficult at the start, for at least for me. Um, but the issue that I would recommend, if you would like me to identify something for people to come back to Pakistan, is that the change that you can bring to this part of the world um, is rewarding. You know, you get this rewarding feeling, and you can make a difference in your sphere. So, for example, uh, you know, in my last 4 years, I do feel I have made some modest contribution, at least to the status quo prevailing in the engineering industry in Lahore. And that is something that would not have been possible if people like you, or the foreign educated exposed people, if they don't choose to come back, then basically what you have is a lot of inbreeding of the local expertise, which tends to have which an effect of stagnation of technological know-how, as well as technological advances in the domestic market. So you do have that component of the reward that you expect, but I'm sure that it also depends on um, the the social conditions to which people return to from abroad. And different people return to different social and economic and financial configurations to in Pakistan. But generally, I think one of the things that you might feel is rewarding is the contribution of change.
I totally agree with you that wherever there are problems, there are opportunities, and if we rather focus on the opportunities rather than the problems, it changes your mindset. Although it's very hard to do that because human beings are naturally inclined towards focusing on negativities. So
Yeah.
that's something perhaps all people who are exposed and who will return need to focus on. You mentioned your humble contributions, and I'm sure they're not very humble. You must have uh, contributed, and I have heard from my friends too how you try to bring in the modern and the state of the art, not only the methods but also the codes and everything. So I would like to know, Dr. Fawad, uh, first of all, what are those contributions, if you can list them quickly? And secondly, the organization that you're working here at, Infrastructure Development Authority of Punjab, for people who don't know what IDAP means, how is it different from NESPAC, for example? Because I still cannot differentiate. I know that it's a new organization with more, more, um, more qualified people, let's say, but what different approach is IDAP adopting that NESPAC, for example, wasn't adopting? And is it something to replace organizations like NESPAC, or is it doing something in a different area?
So let's start on what IDAP does. So IDAP is basically, was raised um, as a one-stop shop.
Mhm.
So typically what has been happening in Pakistan is that there are executing agencies, then there are supervision agencies, and then there are the consultants, the design consultants and supervision consultants. What we have done, our model is that we're one-stop shop. So for example, we have the project management section, which looks after the execution and the project management side of the execution of mega projects. Then we have the design section. The design section looks after the sort of the design, the technicalities. If the government has engaged an external consultant, for example, then we then we function as the client's engineer um, in our roles. Um, the third thing is that um, we have the contract section, which looks after the legal and the contractual core parts of the the projects and everything. So what is unique about us is that we have this inherent capacity to not only execute but also to do design, and that is not there in NESPAC. Um, as to how we're different from NESPAC, well, I would say we are culturally different from NESPAC. Our work culture is completely different from NESPAC. The promotion system here, because you have a younger generation taking charge of the organization as compared to someone who is in his late 50s, right? Um, then, in addition to that, uh, we do not. Um, so in IDAP, you do not get promoted just because of your experience. In a typical
Yep.
government organization, you have to wait for like 20, 25 years to rise up. Whereas we, on the other hand, we don't have to wait for 20, 25 years. Nobody is a permanent employee in IDAP, unlike the other institutions. So all of us are on contracts. And this was done deliberately by the government to take out that government mindset. So if everybody knows that if they are not performing, they can be very well told to leave. And that is the sort of accountability that is inherent in this organization as compared to the other organizations. Now, as far as I culture is concerned, we are more of my section at least is more. Um, you could say that it's more the culture is aligned more towards the culture of a typical organization in Silicon Valley, right? We would not, we are not that. Um, we would not insist you to approach the office at 9 and leave at 5. We are a goal oriented organization. So I would assign work to one of my team members, and that person, as long as he gets the work done, I pretty much don't track where he is, and which is different from typical Asian management
Yep.
structure. The fourth thing is, because we have been recently educated, and all of the people at the the heads of different um, board functions in the organization, all of them are foreign educated. So what we have done, what that has done is we have resorted to more advanced technological concepts. We are more open towards those. We are more open towards interaction with international consultants. For example, I can give you an example of a hospital building that is under construction in Murray. And we have worked with Thornton Tomasetti on that. We have also interacted with Gruner, which is one of the premier uh, consultant, Swiss consultant firm. So we have this more of, you know, an open setup where we um, interact with people, and we are more dynamic, I would say, as far as technological, implementation of new concepts is concerned, as compared to the other organizations. We are definitely not CNW. CNW is very, SOP oriented, enshrined in the 60s and 70s. We have our own specifications which are based on modern codes as compared to the other organizations. So, as to if we want to replace NESPAC, no, but we want to give them the run for their money. And I
Mm-hmm.
think we have. By we have effectively, our portfolio this year would have been around 40 billion rupees.
Wow.
Uh, and that is it's no longer there because of the corona situation, but just before corona we were our portfolio, the new, it doesn't include the projects that are already under construction. If you include them, it would have been easily around 80 billion rupees. So NESPAC knows that, and
Mm-hmm.
NESPAC knows that they have to up the game. Otherwise, the government is smart enough to bring about other organizations and get their work done in a more modern uh, and effective way as compared to if they go through NESPAC. About NESPAC, I feel that it was a great institution, um, but I would say that lack of competition has taken toll on the institution because they they get every project and they rarely have to compete with other organizations,
Right.
and that has actually brought in that sarkari mindset there, where uh, you you would get the project irrespective of your cost effectiveness or your results of the last project and all that.
Interesting. So what I understood is that IDAP doesn't only have the ability, but also the flexibility to deliver the state of the art engineering and construction.
I would, Fazan, I would say it's not exactly state of the art. So, for example, I'm pushing the envelope gradually towards performance-based design in Pakistan,
Mhm.
which is, you know, it's 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 much better than the state of practice in Pakistan, in Lahore at least. But very, it's not close to whatever is being practiced in the US. Um, but still, I mean, we have broken the status quo, so to speak, by resorting to the modern techniques. Being an executing agency, we have this unique advantage of not even having to convince someone to bring in a new concept,
Mhm.
because we have the project and we can choose to design the way we want. We don't have to go back to another executing agency to explain the cost impact of that to them, or the time impact of the new concept to them. So, for example, one of the things that I have been looking forward to implementing is the top-down design here in Pakistan, and it's something that you cannot even think of if you are in NASPAC or in CW. So, but there are hazards to the curiosity and the sort of desire to bring in change. You Those hazards are known, but still, I mean, we are an organization where you can think of doing things like this, but you're pretty much aware of the other organizations, so I don't have to go into detail.
Okay, I totally agree with you that there are still some barriers which are part of the government rules, for example, or the planning commission constraints. So, but still, I mean, it was very pleasant to learn that we are moving forward. We're not stagnant, at least.
Sure, yeah, yeah.
Wonderful. I think that's all I wanted to learn for now. Is there anything you would like to share? Anything valuable that you feel like people listening would?
Well, well, I mean, anyone who is trying to, who attempts or who is thinking about coming back to Pakistan, I would like to say that, we in Pakistan needs people. who are educated abroad, but be prepared to encounter the inertia of change. And there's a lot of inertia, let me tell you that. The average age of a CEO in Silicon Valley would be around 40s now, right? And a decade ago, it would have been around mid 30s, probably, or early 30s.
Yep.
The average age of a CEO in Pakistan is 65 plus, probably, you know. So that should tell you, uh, you know, the that should give you an idea of to quantify the amount of inertia that you have to encounter when you come back to Pakistan. And so things are challenging, but definitely, you know, if the country does need you and it can benefit from you coming back to Pakistan.
Great words. Thank you so much, Dr. Fawad Muzzaffar. It was, like always, a pleasure talking to you, and I hope I'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. I hope to see you soon after you come back to Pakistan in August. And looking forward to make to benefit from your expertise.
Thank you, sir. Looking forward to your guidance and your help, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Bye bye.
All right.